Admiral Zektar pressed his forehands against the cold metal of his command chair. His ship, the Eternal Glory, was the biggest and strongest in the Third Fleet. It had destroyed 100 worlds and made their people bow down to the hegemony. Today should be no different. Through the big window of his bridge, he could see the strange ships floating in space near the human world called Kepler 442b. The alien vessels looked wrong. They were not smooth and shiny like proper hegemony ships. Instead, they had sharp edges and rough patches. Some parts looked like they came from different ships entirely. Burn marks covered their hulls, and weird metal patches were welded over holes. "Look at those ugly things," said Commander Vexahai, his tactical officer. The purple aliens' tentacles moved with disgust. "Their energy readings are all mixed up. No two ships are the same. It's like children built them from scrap." Zektar nodded his massive head. In 300 years of conquering worlds, he had never seen ships this crude. The humans were supposed to be a young race with simple technology. Their first space flights had happened less than 200 years ago. They should be using chemical rockets and basic weapons. "Open a channel," Zektar ordered. "Let's get this over with." The communication officer, a thin being with 6 arms, worked at his controls. "Channel open, Admiral." Zektar straightened up and spoke in his most commanding voice. "Unknown vessels. This is Admiral Zektar of the Hegemony Third Fleet. You are in violation of galactic law. Your world now belongs to the Hegemony Empire. Surrender immediately, or we will destroy your ships and take your planet by force." The response came back fast. Too fast. Most species took time to panic and argue among themselves when the hegemony arrived. But these humans answered right away, and they were laughing. The sound came through the speakers like nothing Zektar had ever heard. It was not the scared giggling of a nervous species or the mad cackling of those who had broken under pressure. This was genuine amusement, like someone had just told a good joke. "Well, hello there, Admiral," came a voice. The main screen flickered to life, showing the face of a human female. She had pale skin and dark hair tied back in a simple style. But it was her eyes that made Zektar uncomfortable. They faced forward like a predator's eyes, and her mouth was stretched wide in what his computer said was called a smile. "Name's Captain Sarah Chen of the UES Defiance," the human continued. Her voice was calm and friendly, like she was meeting an old friend instead of a massive war fleet. "That's quite a collection of ships you have there. Very impressive, very shiny. Must have taken a lot of work to keep them so clean." Zektar blinked his 4 eyes in confusion. Where was the fear? Where was the begging? Every other species had immediately offered tribute or tried to negotiate when they saw his fleet. These humans were acting like this was a normal conversation. "You do not seem to understand," Zektar said slowly. "We are the hegemony. We have conquered over 2,000 worlds. Our technology is thousands of years ahead of yours. You cannot possibly resist us." The human's smile got bigger. "Oh, we understand perfectly. You're here to take our world and make us your slaves. We get it. Happens all the time in the galaxy from what we hear." She paused and seemed to look at something off screen. "Hey, Rodriguez, they say they're thousands of years ahead of us. Think that's true?" Another voice came from off screen. "Well, their shields are using some kind of quantum field technology, and those are definitely plasma cannons on their main guns. Pretty advanced stuff." A pause. "Of course, plasma's just really hot gas when you get down to it." Captain Chen looked back at the screen. "Sorry about that. My engineer likes to take things apart and see how they work. He's already figured out 3 ways to improve your shield generators. Kids these days, am I right?" Commander Vexhai leaned over to Zektar. "Sir, this is highly irregular. They should be terrified. Our arrival has always caused immediate panic and surrender." Zektar was thinking the same thing. In all his years of conquest, no species had ever reacted like this. They were either too scared to speak or try to negotiate, but these humans seemed entertained by the situation. "You have 30 minutes to surrender," Zektar announced. "After that, we will begin bombardment of your world." 30 minutes? Captain Chen looked genuinely surprised. That's very generous of you. Most folks just start shooting right away. She turned to someone off screen again. How long do you need to finish that thing you're working on? Give me 20 minutes and I'll have their shield frequency mapped out, came the reply. Perfect. Captain Chen looked back at the screen. Tell you what, Admiral, we appreciate the warning. Very professional of you, but I'm afraid we're going to have to decline your generous offer. Decline? Zektar's voice rose. You cannot decline. We are the hegemony, so you keep saying, Captain Chen replied. Her smile never wavered. But here's the thing about humans, Admiral. We don't like being told what to do, especially by people who show up uninvited and start making demands. She leaned forward slightly. And we really don't like bullies. The word bullies came through the translator with an edge that made Zektar's skin crawl. For the first time since arriving at this system, he felt a tiny flutter of uncertainty. Sir, his sensor officer called out, I'm reading some kind of energy buildup from the human ships. It's not matching any known weapon signatures. What kind of energy? Zektar demanded. I don't know, sir. It's like nothing I've ever seen. The patterns are completely random but somehow stable at the same time. Captain Chen seemed to hear something in her earpiece. Her smile became something that made Zektar's blood run cold. Admiral, my engineer just finished his analysis of your ships. He's very impressed, says you have some really nice technology there. She paused. He also says he can't wait to see how it works when we take it apart. You cannot take apart our ships, Zektar protested. Our hulls are made of quantum-reinforced materials. Our shields can stop any weapon. Can they stop a weapon that doesn't exist yet? Captain Chen asked. Because that's what humans are really good at, Admiral. Making things that shouldn't exist. She looked directly into the camera. Your 30 minutes are almost up. Last chance to leave peacefully. Zektar felt his confidence returning. This was just alien bravado. They were trying to bluff him with impossible claims and strange behavior. No primitive species could threaten the might of the hegemony. Open fire, he commanded. Target their largest ship. Show them the power of the Empire. The Eternal Glory's main guns charged up with a deep humming sound. Plasma hot enough to melt planets gathered in the weapon arrays. Around the fleet, other ships prepared to fire as well. Captain Chen watched the energy build up with mild interest. Well, that's disappointing. I was hoping you'd be smart enough to leave. She sighed. Rodriguez, are you ready? Ready as I'll ever be, Captain. Good. Captain Chen's smile became something that belonged in Zektar's worst nightmares. Admiral, you wanted to see human technology. Here's lesson number 1. We don't just build weapons. We build solutions. On the sensor displays, the human ships began to move in ways that made no sense. They accelerated without showing thrust signatures. They turned without generating the energy needed for those maneuvers. And somehow, impossibly, they were getting faster. Fire, Zektar shouted. The hegemony fleet unleashed enough firepower to crack a moon. Plasma beams and missile swarms filled the space between the two fleets. It should have been the end of human resistance. Instead, something impossible happened. The humans started laughing again and their ships were still coming. Supreme Overlord Thakris sat in his throne room on the capital world of Hegemon Prime. The room was huge, with walls of black stone and golden decorations that showed the power of the Empire. 100 different alien species had built this palace with their own hands after surrendering to the hegemony. It was meant to inspire fear and respect. Right now, it was just making him angry. Explain this to me again, Thakris said to the hologram floating in front of him. Admiral Zektar's image flickered as it came across thousands of light years. The Admiral looked terrible. His uniform was torn and burned, and one of his 4 arms was in a medical wrap. The humans, my lord, Zektar began, his voice shaking. They're not like any species we've encountered before. When we fired on their ships, our weapons just passed through them. Passed through them? Thakris's voice was dangerously quiet. Are you telling me they have better shield technology than us? No, my lord. They don't have shields at all, as far as we can tell. Our weapons hit their ships, but the ships didn't care. They kept coming like nothing happened. Thackrus stood up from his throne. He was 12 feet tall and covered in thick scales that had turned dark red with age. When he was angry, which was often, his people said he looked like death itself. Ships cannot survive plasma weapons without shields, he stated. It is physically impossible. That's what our scientists said too, my lord, Zektar replied. But the humans seemed to disagree with physics. The Overlord turned to his war council. 20 of the smartest beings in the Empire sat around a circular table made from the skull of an extinct space whale. They had planned the conquest of 2,000 worlds from this room. They had never failed before. Chief Strategist Moltar, Thackrus called. What is your analysis? Moltar was a thin, pale creature whose species had surrendered to the hegemony after seeing just one demonstration of imperial power. His people were natural cowards, but they were also very smart about warfare. My lord, Moltar said, pulling up holographic displays of the battle. The human ships appear to be using technology we don't understand. Our sensors show they are powered by primitive fusion reactors and armed with kinetic weapons and chemical explosives. But somehow, they are achieving results that should require technology centuries ahead of what they possess. Show me, Thackrus commanded. The air above the table filled with images of the human fleet. The ships looked like they had been built by different species entirely. Some were long and thin like needles. Others were round and fat like asteroids. A few looked like they had been made by welding smaller ships together. This one, Moltar pointed to a ship that looked like a flying city, appears to be built around the frame of a destroyed hegemony dreadnought. They have somehow fitted it with human weapons and their own power systems. They're using our own ships against us? Thackrus's voice rose to a roar. Worse, my lord. They're improving them. Our engineers cannot understand how they have increased the efficiency of our plasma cannons by 23%, using what appears to be simple chemical adhesives and metal tape. The room fell silent. The idea that a primitive species could improve hegemony technology was impossible. The Empire had spent thousands of years perfecting their weapons and ships. Every component was designed by the greatest minds in the galaxy. There must be some mistake, said Defense Minister Krakon. Our technology is perfect, it cannot be improved. Tell that to the humans, Admiral Zektar said from his hologram. They took one of our shield generators apart and rebuilt it in 6 hours. Now it's 30% stronger and uses half the power. General Vorthak, the Empire's greatest military mind, leaned forward. How many ships do they have? That's complicated, sir, Zektar replied. We count approximately 50 vessels in their main fleet, but they keep appearing in places they shouldn't be able to reach. Last week, a group of human ships somehow got past our blockade of the Rigel system. When we asked how they traveled, 800 light-years in 2 days, they said they took a shortcut. What kind of shortcut? Thackrus demanded. They wouldn't say, my lord. They just laughed and asked if we wanted to know their secret. When we said yes, they told us the secret was not thinking too hard about why things should be impossible. The War Council looked at each other in confusion. Every species they had conquered made sense. Their technology followed logical rules. Their strategies were predictable. Their weaknesses were obvious. But these humans seemed to operate by different rules entirely. What about their worlds? Asked Science Minister Kelnash. Have we been able to land troops on any of their colonies? Admiral Zektar's image became even more uncomfortable. We tried to land on their agricultural world in the Kepler system, my lord. We sent 10,000 of our best soldiers. And they were met by human farmers, my lord. Farmers? General Vorthak laughed. What did farmers do against our elite troops? They asked if our soldiers wanted to help with the harvest, Zektar said quietly. When our troops said they were there to conquer the planet, the farmers said that was fine. But could they please finish picking the corn first? They needed to get it to market by next week. The council stared at the admiral in silence. Our soldiers didn't know what to do. Zektar continued. The farmers were completely unarmed. They just kept working in their fields and asking our troops for help carrying things. Some of our soldiers actually started helping them. What? Thackrus's roar shook the throne room. The humans were very polite, my lord. They offered our troops food and water. They asked about their families. They wanted to know if hegemony soldiers got vacation time. Zektar paused. By the end of the day, half our invasion force was helping with farm work, and the other half was learning how to cook human food. Where are those soldiers now? General Vorthak asked. Still on the planet, sir. They say they're conducting deep reconnaissance of human society. They send reports every day about human farming techniques and recipes. Defense Minister Krakon stood up so fast his chair fell over. This is impossible. Our soldiers are trained killers. They cannot be defeated by farmers asking them to help with chores. Have you tried ordering them to return to their ships? Science Minister Kelnash asked. Yes, my lord. They said they would come back as soon as they finished helping the humans prepare for winter. Apparently there's some kind of festival coming up and the humans invited them to attend. Supreme Overlord Thakris sat back down on his throne. In 500 years of life and 300 years of conquest, nothing like this had ever happened. The hegemony's power was absolute. Their technology was perfect. Their soldiers were unstoppable, yet somehow a species that barely understood space travel was making fools of them. What do the humans want? He asked finally. That's the strangest part, my lord, Admiral Zektar replied. We asked their captain, Chen, what their terms for surrender would be. She said they weren't interested in surrendering, but they would be happy to discuss trade agreements. Trade agreements? Yes, my lord, they offered to sell us improved versions of our own technology. They also wanted to know if we were interested in buying human food, entertainment, and something they called friendship services. What are friendship services? We're not entirely sure, my lord. But they explained it as helping people who are having a bad day feel better about themselves. Zektar paused. They said our soldiers seemed stressed and offered to teach them relaxation techniques. The throne room was completely quiet. Outside, the three suns of Hegemon Prime were setting, casting long shadows through the tall windows. In all the history of the Empire, no one had ever offered the hegemony friendship services. Sir, Admiral Zektar said carefully, there's one more thing. The humans have a message for you. What message? Captain Chen said to tell you that they know you're probably upset about losing ships to them. She wanted you to know that they're not trying to be mean. They're just very enthusiastic about taking things apart and rebuilding them better. Zektar swallowed hard. She also said that if you want to learn how they do it, they'd be happy to teach you. Supreme Overlord Thakris, ruler of 2,000 worlds and terror of the galaxy, put his head in his hands. What kind of species, he whispered, offers to teach their enemies how to defeat them? Captain Rodriguez floated in the zero gravity of his ship's command center, watching the hegemony blockade through the main screen. His ship, the UES Scrappy, looked like it had been built by children playing with expensive toys. The hull was made from pieces of 3 different alien ships welded together with human steel. The engines were a mix of human fusion technology and hegemony gravity drives that his crew had borrowed from a destroyed enemy vessel. Status report, Rodriguez called out to his crew. All systems green, replied Lieutenant Kim from the engineering station. She was barely 22 years old, but had already figured out how to make hegemony technology work twice as well as it was supposed to. The new modifications to their shield generators are holding steady. I've also managed to reverse the polarity on their gravity wells. What does that do? Instead of pulling things toward them, they now push things away, Kim explained with a grin. I thought it might be useful for redirecting their missiles back at them. Rodriguez smiled. Human engineers were terrifying in the best possible way. Give them something that worked perfectly and they would immediately try to make it work better. Give them something broken and they would turn it into something completely new. What about the other ships? He asked. Captain Martinez reports that the jury rig is ready for combat, said Communications Officer Park. She's managed to turn those hegemony mining lasers into some kind of beam weapon that cuts through their armor like paper. And Captain Thompson? The Duct Tape Express is standing by. He says his new missile system is ready for testing. Rodriguez nodded. Thompson had taken a bunch of human nuclear warheads and somehow fitted them with hegemony teleportation technology. The result was missiles that could appear anywhere without traveling through the space in between. It violated several laws of physics, but the laws of physics had been having a hard time lately. The hegemony blockade ahead of them was impressive. 50 massive ships arranged in perfect formation, each one larger than any human vessel. Their hulls gleamed with perfect metal that had never known battle damage. Their weapons could destroy planets. Their shields could stop anything humans had ever built. Unfortunately for the hegemony, humans had stopped building things the normal way. Incoming transmission, Park announced. The main screen changed to show the bridge of a hegemony command ship. Admiral Korthrex appeared, his insect-like features twisted with anger. Behind him, Rodriguez could see perfect order. Every station was identical. Every officer wore the same uniform. Everything was designed for maximum efficiency and control. Human vessels, Admiral Korthrex began. You are ordered to retreat immediately. This system is under hegemony blockade. No ships may pass. Well, hello there, Admiral, Rodriguez replied cheerfully. Nice formation you have there. Very neat. Very organized. Must have taken a lot of practice to get everyone lined up so perfectly. Do not mock the order of the Empire, Korthrex snarled. Your crude vessels cannot hope to challenge the might of the hegemony fleet. Rodriguez looked around his bridge. His crew was a mix of former military officers, civilian engineers, and college students who had volunteered for the war effort. Their uniforms were mismatched. Their equipment came from a dozen different manufacturers. Half of their modifications were held together with actual duct tape. You know what, Admiral? Rodriguez said. You're absolutely right. Our ships are crude. We built them from spare parts and salvage. Half our crew learned their jobs last week from instruction videos. Korthrex's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. Then you understand why you must retreat. Oh, we understand perfectly, Rodriguez continued. But here's the thing about humans, Admiral. We don't really care if something is supposed to be impossible. We just figure out how to do it anyway. He turned to his crew. Kim, are those shield-y frequencies ready? Got them mapped out 20 minutes ago, the young engineer replied. Their quantum field generators are using a rotating harmonic pattern. Very sophisticated, very secure. She paused and smiled. Also very predictable once you understand the math. Excellent. Park, open a channel to all human ships. Channel open, Captain. Rodriguez keyed his microphone. All units, this is Rodriguez. The Admiral here thinks we can't get past his blockade. I think it's time we showed him what human engineering can do when we stop worrying about whether things should work and focus on making them work anyway. Across the human fleet, crews that had spent months learning to use alien technology in ways it was never designed for began to power up systems that shouldn't exist. On the UES jury rig, Captain Martinez activated mining lasers that had been modified to cut through quantum-reinforced armor. The beams were powered by a fusion reactor that was running at 150% capacity because someone had removed the safety limiters and replaced them with a note that said, "Be careful." On the UES Duct Tape Express, Captain Thompson prepared to fire missiles that would teleport directly inside enemy ships. The targeting system was a laptop computer running software that had been written by a graduate student who thought the whole thing was a fun physics problem. And on the UES Scrappy, Lieutenant Kim activated the modified hegemony shield generators that now pushed instead of pulled, creating gravity fields that would turn the enemy's own weapons against them. This is impossible, Admiral Korthrex said, watching his instruments, as impossible energy readings appeared all across the human fleet. Your technology cannot produce these effects. You keep saying that word, Rodriguez replied. I don't think it means what you think it means. The human ships began to move. They didn't follow any formation patterns that the hegemony recognized. Some ships flew straight at the blockade. Others moved in spirals that seemed random. A few appeared to be flying backwards while somehow still accelerating forward. Open fire, Korthrex commanded. Destroy them before they can reach our lines. The hegemony fleet unleashed a wall of plasma and missiles, enough firepower to level. A city filled the space between the two fleets. It should have been the end of the human attack. Instead, something wonderful happened. Lieutenant Kim's modified shield generators created gravity wells that caught the incoming plasma and redirected. it in random directions. Some beams curved back toward the hegemony ships. Others spiraled off into space, creating light shows that would be visible for millions of years. The missiles fared even worse. Thompson's teleportation jammers confused their guidance systems. Instead of hitting human ships, they began appearing inside hegemony vessels, detonating against the inside of their own hulls. "How are you doing this?" Korthrex demanded as his perfect formation began to break apart. Ships scattered to avoid their own redirected weapons. "Trade secret," Rodriguez replied. "But I'll give you a hint. Your people build things to work exactly as designed. Very efficient, very reliable. But when someone comes along who doesn't care about your design specifications, all that efficiency becomes a weakness." The human ships were among the hegemony fleet now, moving through the formation like sharks through a school of fish. Captain Martinez's modified mining lasers cut through enemy hulls with surgical precision. Captain Thompson's impossible missiles appeared wherever they would do the most damage. And throughout it all, human voices filled the communication channels. They were singing. "What is that noise?" Korthrex asked as his ship shook from another impossible hit. "Sea shanties," Rodriguez explained. "Traditional work songs. We sing them when we're doing a job we enjoy." "You enjoy battle?" "We enjoy solving problems," Rodriguez corrected. "And you, Admiral, are a very interesting problem." The hegemony flagship shuddered as one of Thompson's missiles appeared in its engine room. The lights flickered, and gravity fluctuated as primary systems failed. "Sir," one of Korthrex's officers called out, "we're receiving a transmission from one of the human boarding parties." "Boarding parties?" Korthrex spun around. "How did they board us? All our airlocks are sealed. They appear to have cut their own doors, sir." On the secondary screen, a young human woman appeared. She was wearing what looked like a mechanical suit made from spare parts. Behind her, Korthrex could see his own corridor, but the atmosphere gauges showed it was completely airless. "Hi there," the human said cheerfully. "I'm Sergeant Johnson from the UES Scrappy. Hope you don't mind, but we needed to borrow some of your corridor space. Your artificial gravity is really well designed, by the way. Much better than ours." "You cannot survive in vacuum," Korthrex protested. "Sure we can," Johnson replied. "It's just a matter of bringing your own air and not thinking too hard about all the radiation." She looked at something off-screen. "Hey, Rodriguez, I found their main computer core. Mind if I take a look at their operating system?" Rodriguez's voice came through the communication channel. "Try not to break anything, Johnson. We might want to use it later." "Will do," the sergeant replied. She looked back at the screen. "Admiral, you have really nice computers. Very advanced, very secure." She paused and smiled. "Unfortunately, all your security is designed to keep out people who understand how your systems work. It's not so good against people who just start pressing buttons to see what happens." The lights on Korthrex's bridge began flashing in patterns that spelled out hello in human English. "This is not possible," the Admiral whispered. "There's that word again," Rodriguez said. "Admiral, I think it's time we had a Ladmiral Zektar floated in the emergency command center of what used to be his flagship, the Eternal Glory." The massive ship now looked more like a floating scrapyard than the pride of the Third Fleet. Hull breaches had been patched with whatever materials the crew could find. The main bridge was gone, replaced by a temporary control room that had been built in what used to be the officers' dining hall. Through the cracked viewport, he could see human ships moving between the wreckage of his fleet like mechanics in a garage. They weren't destroying the damaged hegemony vessels, instead they were fixing them. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving another transmission from the humans." "Put it through," Zektar said wearily. He had given up trying to understand human behavior weeks ago. Captain Chen's face appeared on the makeshift screen. She was wearing what appeared to be a hegemony environmental suit, but it had been modified with human technology. Strange devices and colorful patches covered the alien armor. "Good morning, Admiral," she said cheerfully. "How are you feeling today?" "How am I feeling?" Zektar repeated. "My fleet is destroyed. My soldiers are refusing to fight. Half my crew has joined your boarding parties to help repair the ships you damaged. How do you think I'm feeling?" "Probably pretty stressed," Chen replied with genuine sympathy. War is hard on everyone, that's why we wanted to talk to you about our new friendship program. Zektar's 4 eyes blinked slowly. Your what? Friendship program, Chen repeated. We've noticed that a lot of hegemony personnel seem unhappy. Your soldiers are overworked, your officers are scared of making mistakes, and your crews haven't had a vacation in decades. So we thought we'd help. Help how? Well, for starters, we've set up recreation areas on all the ships we've boarded. Games, movies, books, that sort of thing. Your people seem to really enjoy human entertainment. Chen paused and looked at something off screen. Lieutenant Rodriguez, how's that cooking class going? A voice came from the background. Great. The hegemony crew loves human pizza. They're asking if we can teach them to make tacos next. Chen looked back at the screen. See? Friendship. Zektar rubbed his temples with 2 of his hands. Captain Chen, we are at war. This is not supposed to be a social gathering. Says who? Chen asked. I mean, you came here to conquer our worlds and enslave our people. We defended ourselves and defeated your fleet. But that doesn't mean we have to be mean about it. You didn't just defeat us, Zektar protested. I don't even know what you're doing to us. We're helping, Chen said simply. Your ships are much better designed than ours, but they're built by people who were too scared to try new things. Your crews are smart and capable, but they've been trained to follow orders without thinking. Your technology is amazing, but it only does what it was originally designed to do. She leaned forward, and that terrifying human smile appeared again. So, we're fixing all of that. Fixing? Zektar's voice cracked. Sure. Take your shield generators, for example. Beautiful engineering, very elegant design, but whoever built them was thinking too small. Watch this. The screen split to show a view of the human ship UES Scrappy. As Zektar watched, the crewed vessel activated what were clearly hegemony shield generators, but instead of the familiar blue energy barrier. The shields glowed with multiple colors and seemed to extend twice as far as they should. How? Zektar whispered. Your engineers were so focused on making the shields perfect that they never tried making them bigger. Chen explained. All we did was remove the safety limiters and add some human power sources. Now they're 300% more effective and they look pretty too. You removed the safety limiters? Zektar was horrified. Those are there to prevent catastrophic overload. Only, if you're worried about catastrophic overload, Chen replied. We tested them thoroughly first. Well, mostly thoroughly. Okay, we tested them once and nothing exploded, so we figured they were safe. Before Zektar could respond, another voice came through the ship's internal communication system. It was, speaking hegemony standard, but with a strange accent. Attention all crew members, the voice announced. This is Human Advisor Johnson. The afternoon recreational activities will begin in 10 minutes. Today's schedule includes basic cooking lessons in Cargo Bay 3, introduction to human music in the former weapons control room, and beginner's yoga in the main hangar. All hegemony personnel are welcome to attend. Human Advisor? Zektar turned to his remaining officers. Who authorized a human advisor? The crew requested one, sir, his second-in-command replied nervously. They said the humans were teaching them useful skills and they wanted to learn more. What kinds of skills? Cooking, sir, and something called critical thinking, and how to have fun without breaking regulations. Zektar felt a headache building behind his eyes. Critical thinking? Yes, sir. Apparently humans encourage their people to question orders and suggest improvements. The crew finds this concept interesting. Sir, the communications officer interrupted. Captain Chen wants to show you something else. The screen changed to show the interior of a hegemony dreadnought, but it looked completely different. The sterile gray walls had been painted with bright colors and strange human artwork. Crew members who should have been standing at rigid attention were sitting in comfortable chairs, talking and laughing while they worked. This is the crew lounge we set up on the Dominator, Chen explained. Your people were working 18-hour shifts with no breaks. That's no way to live. So we showed them how to be more efficient with their time and gave them space to relax. Efficiency is not improved by relaxation, Zektar stated. Want to bet? Chen's smile got wider. The Dominator's crew is now operating at 150% of normal capacity. Turns out when people aren't miserable, they work better. Who knew? This is impossible, Zektar muttered. There's that word again. Chen laughed. Admiral, has anyone ever told you that you say impossible a lot? Because what you're doing is impossible. Only if you think the way you've always done things is the only way to do things, Chen replied. But humans don't think that way. We see something that works and immediately start wondering how to make it work better. The screen split again to show multiple views of hegemony ships that had been improved by human engineering. The vessels still looked like Imperial designs, but they were covered with human modifications. Strange antennas, colorful hull patches, and weapons that definitely weren't standard hegemony issue. Your ship there, Chen pointed to one of the modified vessels. Used to be a standard Imperial cruiser. Good ship, but boring. Now it's got better engines, stronger shields, more comfortable crew quarters, and weapon systems that can do things your original designers never dreamed of. What kinds of things? Zektar asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. Well, the main guns can now fire in 17 different modes, including one we call disco ball, that turns enemy missiles into pretty light shows. The shield generators can create force fields in any shape you want, and the life support system now makes the air smell like whatever the crew is in the mood for. Why would you want air that smells like something? Because it makes people happy, Chen said simply. And happy people do better work, treat each other better, and don't spend all their time plotting rebellions against their leaders. Zektar was quiet for a long moment. Around him, he could hear his crew talking in the corridors. They were discussing human recipes and human movies and human ideas about how to improve ship operations. For the first time in his military career, his crew sounded happy. Captain Chen, he said finally, what do you want from us? Want from you? Chen looked genuinely confused. Admiral, we don't want anything from you, we want things for you. Such as better lives, more interesting work, technology that does amazing things instead of just efficient things, the chance to explore the galaxy instead of conquering it. Chen paused. And really good coffee. Your food replicators make terrible coffee, but we can fix that. You want to give us better lives? Zektar said slowly. In exchange for what? Nothing, Chen replied. That's what friends do for each other. They help without expecting payment. Friends? Sure. You attacked us, we defended ourselves, and now we're all stuck out here in space together. Might as well be friends. Zektar looked around his emergency command center. His officers were listening to every word, and he could see something in their faces he had never seen before. Hope. Captain Chen, he said carefully, suppose I wanted to learn more about this friendship program. What would that involve? Chen's smile became something that no longer seemed terrifying. Instead, it looked warm and welcoming. That's easy, Admiral. Just ask yourself one question. What would you do if you weren't afraid of getting in trouble for trying something new? 6 months after what the historians would call the Kepler incident, Supreme Overlord Thackeras found himself sitting across a table from a group of humans in a conference room that had once been the bridge of his personal dreadnought. The humans had insisted on redecorating. The walls were now painted in bright colors. Comfortable chairs had replaced the rigid command seats, and soft music played in the background. It was completely undignified for the ruler of 2,000 worlds. It was also the most relaxed he had felt in centuries. So, said Captain Chen, who was eating something from a small container with a spoon, let's talk about the friendship treaty. Thackeras looked down at the documents spread across the table. They were unlike any treaty the hegemony had ever signed. Most surrender documents were simple. The defeated species gave up everything and obeyed imperial law. These papers were filled with words like cooperation and mutual benefit and cultural exchange programs. I still don't understand the payment structure, Thackeras admitted. You want us to pay you to stop attacking our fleets, provide you with our most advanced technology, and establish trade routes throughout the Empire. In exchange, you will protect us from other threats and be your friends. added Captain Rodriguez, who was sitting nearby with his feet up on the table in a way that should have been insulting, but somehow wasn't. Don't forget the friendship part. Yes, the friendship, Thakris said slowly. Captain Chen, your species defeated the most powerful military force in the galaxy in 6 months. Why do you want to be our friends instead of our rulers? Chen paused in her eating and looked thoughtful. Well, ruling people sounds like a lot of work. You have to make all the decisions, deal with everyone's problems, and spend all your time in meetings talking about boring political stuff, she shrugged. We'd rather spend our time building cool things and exploring the galaxy. But you could force us to serve you, Thakris pointed out. Your technology is clearly superior to ours. Our technology is different from yours, Chen corrected. Better in some ways, worse in others. That's why friendship works better than conquest. We can share what we're good at and learn from what you're good at. General Vorthak, who had been silent during most of the negotiations, leaned forward. Give us an example. Sure, Rodriguez said. Your people are amazing at building ships that work exactly as designed for thousands of years. Very reliable, very efficient. Our people are good at taking things apart and rebuilding them to do new stuff. Put those skills together, and we can build ships that are both reliable and adaptable. Your medical technology is incredibly advanced, Chen added. You can cure diseases that kill millions of humans every year. But your doctors only treat physical problems. Human medicine includes mental health, emotional support, and something we call bedside manner that makes patients feel better even when they're still sick. Thakris nodded slowly. In the months since the human invasion, he had received reports from across the Empire about the changes they were making. Human advisors were teaching hegemony workers new ways to solve problems. Human engineers were collaborating with Imperial scientists to create technologies that neither species could build alone. Human doctors were working alongside hegemony, physicians to develop treatments that healed both body and mind. And everywhere the humans went, people seemed happier. There's something else, Chen said, setting down her container. We've been analyzing your empire's structure and we found some problems. Problems? Thakris's voice carried a hint of his old imperial authority. Nothing insulting, Rodriguez said quickly. Just inefficiencies. For example, you have 2,000 worlds, but most of them only contribute raw materials to the core systems. All the advanced manufacturing and research happens on a few dozen planets. That is the most efficient system, Defense Minister Krakon protested. Centralized control ensures quality and prevents rebellion. Maybe, Chen said, but it also means you're wasting the potential of trillions of intelligent beings. Every world in your empire has people who could be inventors, artists, scientists, or engineers. But your system only lets them be farmers, miners, or factory workers. She pulled up a holographic display showing the Empire's economic structure. Look at this. The Zeta Reticuli system produces agricultural products and sends them to the core worlds. But the people there used to be master shipbuilders before you conquered them. They could be designing new vessels, but instead they're growing space wheat. If we allowed every world to develop advanced technology, they might rebel, General Vorthak pointed out. Or they might create amazing things that make everyone's life better, Rodriguez countered. That's what happened with us. Earth started as one world with limited resources. But we didn't try to control everything from one place. We let different regions develop different specialties, then shared the results. The result, Chen added, is that we went from chemical rockets to faster-than-light travel in less than 2 centuries. Your empire has had the same technology for the last 1,000 years because you're too scared to let people experiment. Thakris was quiet for a long moment. Everything the humans said made sense, but it went against everything the hegemony had been built on. Control, order, uniformity. These principles had created the greatest empire in galactic history. They had also created an empire where no one was allowed to think for themselves. What exactly are you proposing? He asked finally. Partnership, Chen said simply. The hegemony keeps its political structure, but we help you make it better, more efficient, more creative, more fun. Fun? Minister Kelnash looked confused. Government is not supposed to be fun. Why not? Rodriguez asked. If people enjoy their work, they do it better. If they're excited about their projects, they come up with better ideas. If they're not constantly worried about punishment for making mistakes, they take the risks necessary for real innovation. Chen nodded. We're not asking you to change your government overnight. Just try some small experiments. Let a few worlds develop their own technologies. Give some people permission to question orders. See what happens when you stop punishing creativity and start rewarding it. And if these experiments fail? Thakris asked. Then we try something else, Chen replied. That's what experimentation means. You try things, some work, some don't, and you learn from both. But what if people rebel? What if they decide they don't want to be part of the empire anymore? Then you let them go, Rodriguez said. A government that has to force people to stay isn't really a government, it's just organized bullying. The room fell silent. The idea of letting worlds leave the empire voluntarily was so radical that most of the imperial officials couldn't even process it. Overlord, Admiral Zektar said quietly. He had been listening from the corner of the room, still wearing the modified hegemony uniform that human engineers had redesigned for comfort and efficiency. I've been working with the humans for months now. My crews are happier, my ships work better, and my people actually look forward to coming to work. And, Thakris prompted. None of them want to leave, Zektar continued. When people are treated well, when their ideas are valued, when they're allowed to grow and learn, they don't rebel. They contribute. Thakris looked around the table, at his advisors. Some looked skeptical, others thoughtful. A few seemed genuinely excited by the possibilities the humans were describing. Captain Chen, he said finally, there's one thing I still don't understand. Your species had every opportunity to conquer us completely. Why didn't you? Chen's expression became serious for the first time in the conversation. Because conquest doesn't work, Overlord. You can force people to obey you, but you can't force them to think, create, or care. The greatest achievements in human history came from cooperation, not domination. She gestured to the modified bridge around them. This room used to be a symbol of imperial power. Now it's a place where humans and hegemony citizens work together to solve problems. Which version do you think gets better results? Thakris looked around the room again. Human and hegemony personnel worked side by side at various stations, talking quietly and sharing ideas. The atmosphere was relaxed but focused, creative but productive. For the first time in his 500-year life, he saw what his empire could become. Very well, he said, reaching for the treaty documents. Let's try this friendship experiment. As he signed his name, Thakris heard something he had never heard before in an imperial facility. Spontaneous applause. Humans and hegemony citizens alike were celebrating not a conquest or a surrender, but the beginning of something entirely new. Welcome to the neighborhood, Captain Chen said, extending her hand in the human gesture of greeting. We're going to have a lot of fun together. And, for the first time in centuries, the supreme overlord of the hegemony empire smiled back.